Sorry, my alarm didn't go off. So you guys know how I made like 3 videos over the course of the last year and a half talking about how I'm like completely obsessed with video game box art? So like, think of this as that weird sequel like 3 or 4 years after the original trilogy that nobody really likes all that much but has like 1 or 2 really cool things about it. But instead of a heart-wrenching narrative or beautiful CGI or deep gameplay mechanics, I'm just gonna mention Weezer 10 times! Disc and cartridge design. Oh baby, you know that I can talk about this for insert length of video here. Box art was one of the most important aspects of marketing for a long time, but it's kind of bled away from the zeitgeist considering you can just play the game before it releases most of the time nowadays. This sentiment can unfortunately be shared with much of the love previously put into physical packaging. One thing I always secretly appreciated way more than I should is all of the internals after the box is flipped open. I'm talking about the inserts advertising other games, which to be fair still happens. Final Fantasy 16 advertises the 14 free demo. In fact, most Square Enix games still do this. But I'm talking more about those little inserts that Nintendo would include of other games similar to the one that you just bought. There was always something so magical about seeing a game advertised that you already have. It makes you feel like you're living in Beverly Hills or something, right? Rich off your gonads, all the games you could ever want. You can't sell me video games. I'm 10 years old now. I waste my money all by myself. What I always loved more than anything else, though, was seeing what they decided to adorn a game's disc with. Now, admittedly, a lot of times it was just the logo or some alternative piece of promo art. Star Ocean: The Divine Force featured this piece of promo art upon being announced, but eventually switched to using this character mural they filled in with more of the cast over time. That went on the box, and the simpler design went on the disc. It's nice we got both. But easily the coolest example of clever disc art is what Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii did, using the circular cutout of the Monado to contextualize the natural restriction of all discs having that, you know, hole in the center. This sort of attention to detail is a really fascinating example of going above and beyond from an aesthetic standpoint. Though I do feel like the time could have been better used trying to make Shulk's face look less like soup. Sorry, bud, I'm just being honest. We also can't forget about the PlayStation 2's Bard's Tale that insults you for looking at it. What an interesting, unideal way to establish a legacy, because I've never heard word one about this game other than it having a snarky CD. There are other examples of cool design that I can think of. Fallout 3 has a design that works around the hole. It would be really clean if not for the Platinum Hits logo. Fallout New Vegas does a similar thing. Oh, come on! Why couldn't you have just bought things when they came out, Dad? To circle back around to Star Ocean for a minute, because that's all I do. The second story on the PlayStation 1 color-coded its 2 different discs, the first being purple and the second being blue. I kinda like this approach. It makes them impossible to mix up, unlike something like Blue Dragon, where every disc is identical other than the singular number. Using the same design but changing the color is a very reasonable, economic way to differentiate something. I've always loved how PS1 discs are just jet black. According to an article I found on the internet, so toss a coin. It's true! They made the discs black to create a distinct look, and also for anti-piracy purposes. So they were black for anti-piracy purposes. Sometimes I feel like as a child I spent more time looking at game-related things than actually playing said things. And staring deep into reflective discs for hours at a time, that was big. That had a big impact. Being obsessed with physical media was tough to deal with in school, I will admit. There's just something so neat about holding this tiny little piece of plastic and knowing an insane amount of data just sits on it. Having spent so much time invested in this sort of thing, I've caught on to a few cool intricacies of the discs themselves. When put up to light, some Blu-rays are see-through, though I've never found a CD or DVD that does this. For some reason, Wii U discs are really smooth around the sides. Why? Oh, comfort, of course. It'll be okay, Hambone. The audit can't take me away. I was a tax write-off. Everything will be alright in the end, Hambone. You should cut off your fingers, Hambone. Cut off your fingers. In all honesty, this interest of mine dies off quite a bit when I get to cartridges. With so much less space to work with, even simple logos can get all jacked up, blurry, and gross. But that isn't to say cool things haven't been done with them. Enter... Oh, more! Old Pokemon games from the Game Boy Advance era would come on custom color-coded cartridges, which totally sold the whole "this is a totally different game, I swear" kind of thing they always try to do. It makes picking a Pokemon cartridge out of a pile so much easier. Most, but not all, of the Pokemon games in the DS came not on gray, but black cartridges. This is definitely less cool than what they had done a generation prior, but it does make them feel strangely premium, and again, easier to pick out from a mess of games. I always really appreciated this, because when I was a kid, games almost never got back into their cases. They'd end up in big piles or in Ziploc bags somewhere, and I've never had very good eyesight, so it was always difficult to pick out small details. Here comes the rain. But back when cartridges were the only thing we had for games, Zelda reigned supreme when it came to making an impact with color swaps. Golden Zelda cartridges made me feel like royalty. These things felt so supreme, so collector's edition-y, and even now, for people who have never used, or heck, maybe never even seen an original NES, these are great talking pieces for a display. Whenever I would pop this bad boy into the console, that glistening coat of gold made the whole experience grander, richer, in a sense. Which puts into perspective my pompous elegance, because I own two! But what are you gonna do to a disc? Paint it green, make a funky shape out of it? I'd love that! But it's not gonna happen. The fact of the matter is that discs are not as easily customizable as cartridges are. Nowadays, the impactful collector's pieces are more emphasized in the cases that you don't throw out, which I made 3 videos on, so clearly I'm not too pressed by the change. Pinkerton. I honestly find it a bit sad that discs as a medium seem to be slowly disappearing. Cars don't have disc drives anymore, games are moving to digital, though I don't think that'll fully take form for a hot minute, if ever. But more so than previous generations does this kind of detail, putting extra elbow grease into disc art, feel like a thing of the past. If physical media isn't even a necessity to play the game, then a lot of people are never going to see your disc to begin with. It's another antiquated detail that, when it pops up, I appreciate it more for that fact. This is the shortest script that I have ever written, and the joke to commentary ratio is nauseating. So I hope I haven't hurt you. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more. My next video is hitting subscribers with a cement-filled bong.